Oh, welcome to the Gamblin Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He's Kyle Jacobson. He's Money Mainville. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. Just going through the touchdowns that Texas Tech scored this week. It might take us an hour and a half. There were plenty. The BHW law firm rundown looks like this. North Texas gets spanked. The rest of the Big 12 still looks weird. No idea who's any good. Neil Brown stinks. Sonny Dykes is Neil Brown. And more. We'll also talk just a little bit of ACC. We'll see if Calford gets the call back home. Memphis. We'll talk about the Pac-12 just a little bit. Kyle, will you tell us just a little bit about our friends from Barnett, Howard, and Williams?
You know, I heard them on the radio here in DFW the other day.
It spreads.
Made me feel like a bit of a celebrity. They came on and said, "Hey, I'm Luke Williams with Barnett, Howard, and Williams Law Firm." And I'm in my truck. I'm like, I know that guy. So they're everywhere. They're based here in Fort Worth, but they handle cases all across the state of Texas. 3 double Texas Tech graduates, so you know you're getting the best and brightest. They do criminal defense, catastrophic injury, one of the only law firms in the state of Texas, certified for Title IX student litigation. We appreciate their support of the Gauchos. You can go to bhwlawfirm.com to learn more, or just turn on the radio in your car, and you could also learn more that way. Let's get into it.
We'll start with the Big 12, just like we have the last few weeks. Any games stand out to you? Of course, we have the UCF comeback on TCU. We'll start with that one. Kyle, you picked UCF to win the Big 12. I think it was maybe a value pick for you. I'm not trying to put words into your mouth that you think the UCF Golden Knights or whatever they're called are the best team in the Big 12, but they certainly are 1-0 in the Big 12 after that, and they have Florida up next. What do you think about their win against TCU?
Well, I think, to be honest, I would love to sit here and pimp that pick and say, you know, my choice is already 1-0 with a road win over a good team. Feels a little bit more like TCU kind of blew it. So I'm going to go easy on the victory lap. But you look at UCF's future schedule, I think according to FPI, like 4 of their next 5 conference games, they'll be at least a 1-touchdown favorite, if not maybe like a 10-point favorite. The lone exception is a road trip to Ames, but they're actually even a slight favorite on FPI in Ames right now. Not to say they're going to win their next 5, but they certainly do have an opportunity if they can hold serve, especially in those games where they're a big favorite, to get out of the gates here, something like 4-1, 5-1 in Big 12 play, in which case they will be in the driver's seat come November. The other one that stood out to me was Arizona versus Kansas State. Felt like 2 teams that were expected to compete in the top 5, and one of them very clearly better than the other, at least on Friday night. But it sort of seems like Arizona struggling a little bit out of the gates. I know their offense was on fire week 1, but I think kind of a lackluster performance last weekend, and now, you know, getting beat pretty bad by K-State. So I feel like we learned a lot about both teams. Kansas State, really good rushing attack between the quarterback and a 2-headed monster at running back. And Arizona maybe not quite in that top tier of, you know, Kansas State, Utah, Oklahoma State, and those squads. So anyway, those are a few that stood out to me across the league.
Colorado beating Colorado State. That happened. I don't know that we didn't spend much time on it. I do think that Colorado has been the team talking a bunch of noise and getting it fed to them a little bit in the past year and a half. Colorado State did a lot of talking before this game, and it kind of pissed Colorado off. So I don't know if Colorado just had a good game because it was Colorado State and they're not very good, or if they just wanted to give somebody else a piece of humble pie that they've been getting. But Travis Hunter had a really nice interception, and they played fine. Did y'all see the Wyoming coach talking about the BYU defense? Okay.
On the sideline, and you look out there and see that defense. I mean, there's some ass up there. You know, when you're looking at that front, and you're looking at the way that the secondary looks and the linebackers look, it's not a bad looking club. You know, I was stood out there on that sideline at Arizona State, and there's ass at all levels. I mean, they look good. It's not a bad team.
So apparently BYU has a good-looking team there. Arizona State as well. Arizona State beating Texas State on Thursday night. They'll come into Lubbock, so we'll talk more about them on Wednesday. But Arizona State 3-0 against a bad Wyoming team, a bad Mississippi State team that just got killed by Toledo, and a good Texas State team, but a level lower. They beat them by 3. So I really don't know what to think about Arizona State yet. We'll see a lot more on Saturday. But both those clubs, BYU and Arizona State, have some ass on the front lines. Money, what do you think about the Big 12 this weekend? Any teams stand out at all besides maybe Kansas State?
Yeah, I would actually say they're neighbors in the Jayhawks, losing to UNLV, Kansas 1-2 now. I'm out on the Jayhawks, completely out, selling all my stock. Jalen Daniels is terrible. Devin Neal can only do so much for their offense, but 1-2 after kind of the anticipation that they had coming into the season feels like a lot worse situation than where Texas Tech is at and where a lot of other programs kind of in the middle of the Big 12 where they want to compete at the next level of the Big 12, they find themselves in a very unfortunate spot now.
You know, Rob, I'm going to do a little bit of show forecasting here. I could foresee a little bit, maybe like 1 or 2 where Kyle was right segments. So as a sign of good faith, I'm going to do a little bit of where Kyle was wrong. There was a time when I thought Jeff Grimes as like co-OC, offensive line coach, something like that, may have balanced out Kitley in a way that I would have been very interested in seeing. I'm good.
Yeah.
No thanks.
No. Where Rob was right, I thought Kettlenicki was going to be a huge loss to that Kansas program, a la Garrett Riley leaving Sonny Dykes. And it has proven to be that in a way. I was like you, Kyle, where Rob was wrong. Way into Jeff Grimes, his first season at Baylor. Like, super into him. Love that offense. Wide zone him to death, pop him long. That all sounded weird. But I love the Jeff Grimes play action offense. And I thought it might be a fine fit in Kansas because that's kind of what Kettlenicki did. But I cannot explain what the Kansas offense is because Jalen Daniels last year, before his back injury, was good. And good the year before is kind of a fill-in guy. I don't know why they didn't play him way more. But to me, did Jason Bean just beat him out last year? And so they just let Jalen Daniels redshirt and not play? Like, I can't explain it. And my Kansas friend, Clint Scott, was telling me this weekend, oh, Jalen Daniels is incredible. He's just having a bad – he's still hurt. His back's still hurt. No way Jason Bean was better. Jason Bean won 8 games at Kansas and is on an NFL roster. Like, that guy might have been pretty good. So I don't know what it is with Kansas. Also, how long has Leipold been a head coach?
I don't quote me on this. I think he got his start at Division III Wisconsin Whitewater, like D3 powerhouse, and then went to Buffalo. A long time.
He sucks. In game
This
management.
this is his first season coaching Division I football without Kotel Nicky at offensive coordinator, and he's averaging 18.5 points a game against FBS competition.
And cannot figure out a late game drive. Now, UNLV had one of the worst clock blunders at the end of the first half and threw a touchdown on a wheel route anyways. But that Kansas team just feels like they keep screwing around at the end of halves and at the end of quarters. Did you see Lance Leipold's wife? Hammering fans on Twitter.
Yeah, mad about attendance or something.
Mad about attendance. They're not playing in Lawrence. And they're going to play all their home games in Kansas City at Arrowhead. if they're 3-5, there's not gonna be anybody. I mean, Colorado fans will show up to that game.
Iowa State.
Iowa State fans will outnumber them 2-1. So we'll see how that goes. When does basketball season start there? All right, let's get into Texas Tech. I don't think there were any other big games we missed this weekend. You mentioned Arizona kind of struggling, more than kind of struggling. Avery Johnson had 100 yards rushing. Utah looked human a little bit for most of that game. Oklahoma State did business against Tulsa. And then Cincinnati beat a bad Miami of Ohio team. Did y'all mention West Virginia? West Virginia was up 10 with 5 minutes to go. I'm checking my notes here. They lost?
That was bad. That was really bad.
Did NASCAR Neal go 3 and out with a minute off the clock?
I think that's right.
And he let Garrett Green get sacked on a long pass play?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Rob, I sent you that thread. They've got an issue closing games because, sometimes people talk about an offense between the 20s, like they're really good, and then they get in the red zone and they choke. I feel like that's Neil Brown, but like metaphorically during the 60 minutes of game clock, like he's good between the 20s. And then it's time to close somebody out in the final 6 minutes, and it can't be done. Because I'm watching that game, I'm like, okay, they're on the road, they're up 10. Garrett Green's playing well, they're running the ball well enough to move the sticks. And I think they had come to that point. They were like down 7, maybe even down 10. I can't remember, to get up 10. So they were on quite a run there. I don't know what it was, something like 24-14 or 21-7 type run. And then just blew it, just completely blew it. And, fool me once, shame on you, Neil Brown. Fool me 12 times in your 4 or 5 year tenure at West Virginia, and holy cow.
And people were trusting the climb last year. They were. And, what's his name? Mountaineer. What's his name?
Irrational?
Irrational Raider, whatever his name is. He was, putting out his little gifs of the Neil Brown head on the, and I never understood it. I've been vocal about that. He almost got me in last year, and then I saw a shoulderless Baron Morton nearly come back on him because they were throwing it with Marchiol late in the game, up, nearly turning it over, and then Texas Tech drives down the field, and Spit York jumps 2 seconds too early, and they missed the touchdown to tie it or whatever. But West Virginia just, that kind of football does not close out games. And Neil Brown, with his dumb look on his face, just can't figure it out. And West Virginia fans have already, they had a little bit of a grace considering last season. We're 3 plays away from 10-2. Okay, all right. You weren't. You lost on a Hail Mary to Houston. Doggovan showed up for a play. And then you're 1-2. And now it's a nice loss to Penn State, sure. Then you lost to Pitt, fine. They're trying to fire the guy again. Make up your mind. Are we trusting the climb or not?
Yeah, it really feels like that 9-win season last year was definitely more so the anomaly than the rule. And in hindsight, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say it shouldn't have happened, but you remember being at Big 12 Media Days, and, to Garrett Green's first year as a starter, a guy who's averaged 6 yards per carry for his career, like, good running quarterback.
Gamer.
They're bringing C.J. Donaldson back. They've got 5 offensive linemen with a combined, 130 starts. And I'm thinking, okay, there is a type of offense, a type of game plan this team could deploy that would make them a tough out. And Neil Brown shows up to Big 12 Media Days talking about going vertical down the field and tempo. And it's like, I mean, are you less familiar with your own personnel than me, some guy watching on his couch? Like, what are you thinking? And they patched it together well enough last year. But I don't know. If you're not a good coach, you can have a fluky season or something. But I don't know if lightning is going to strike twice there.
No, I don't believe so. All right, now we can get into Texas Tech football. It was 66-21. Yeah, but North Texas stinks. Don't care. Texas Tech since 2000 has had an electric offense, right? Mike Leach, NASCAR Neal, Cliff Kingsbury, all these elite offensive coordinators coming around the program. And you've never scored that many points in the first half. Never been done. You had 3 interceptions. You put them in the end zone. One of them was a pick 6. The other 2 converted to points. You scored 21 points in a minute and 10 seconds, I think. Just an overwhelming performance. And, you miss your fit a little bit on one pass to the sideline. They run off for 70 yards. All right, that's the only score in the first half. And I thought our guy got tripped a little bit. I think it was Chapman Lewis got tripped. But if that's all it is in the first half, and then you're playing a bunch of bodies in the second half and they score 2 more times, I am ecstatic about both the offense and defense at home. I think you still have some real trouble spots on this team. Taj Brooks makes a world of difference. But the offensive scheme in yesterday's game, Saturday's game, yes, yesterday, good God, 11 a.m. kickoffs feel like 3 days ago, felt completely different. The running game was well coordinated yesterday. And I watched the whole game over. But this is just from the first 3 drives. You guys ready? Now, there were more run plays, inside zone, outside zone, mixed in with this. But this is just in the first 3 drives. So the touchdown drive, 8 plays, field goal drive, 8 plays, and then another touchdown drive that was converted on 4th and 1. You ready? Jet sweep, motion left tackle, H-back, pull right. Kind of a GT look with the tight end pulling right. Jet sweep, motion left guard, H-back, pull right. Kind of a GT look coming across your face. Split back. It's 2 running backs on either side of the quarterback. One's the H-back. He motions up to the H-back. GT, guard and tackle, pull from the other side. So you have an H-back on the right. You're pulling 2 to the right. All right. Tight end at the H-back position pulls left. Then you have a jet sweep around the back action. Tight end pulls the other way. Eye candy. Run again. Yet another split back. This time he stayed in the backfield. Lead. Tackle, tight end pull toward the lead. There's 3 lead blockers. And then you had the tackle and tight end pull again. 2 lead blockers. Then you had the 4th and 1, 13 personnel cross. So Tharp's on this side, John Carlos Miller, and Jalen Conyers all in the backfield. Tharp's up here. Conyers right here. John Carlos Miller. Conyers, backside fill. John Carlos Miller gets the edge. Tharp pushes his guy to the end zone. Taj Brooks takes out his mouthpiece at the 5 and scores on a 20-yard run on 4th and 1. That's just the first 3 drives. And you're doing this the entire time. Do you guys want to know the PFF grades for the offensive line run block and the tight ends run blocking? Because
Sure.
that was a pretty dominant performance by the rushing attack, right? Taj Brooks looked great in the first half, over 100 yards. Then you had Cam Dickey and Jacoby Williams had success in the second half. Just guess some of the run block grades. So Dalton Merriman, the left tackle, 67.3. Would you have said higher or lower there? Yeah, that's a pretty good grade.
Yeah, that's about average. I think 65 is kind of the middle point you're shooting for.
All right, so the other 4 offensive linemen, again, pretty good day from the running backs. Would you say at average or below?
I would think above average.
Money, what do you think they did? Above average?
I would say above 2, but you're making me think it's below.
I don't remember getting stuffed. I think once we tried to run tempo real quick on like 2nd and 2 and got stuffed. And Taj had a couple where like he had to really fight for 3 yards, but and he averaged 7.5 for the day, so it wasn't like they were giving you too many problems.
48.5, 60.1, 55.4, 51.1. That's from
Yeah.
left guard to right tackle. And
Grain
again,
of salt.
I'm not a PFF guy. I'm not generally. Those are all on 30 rushing attempts for the starting offensive line. John Carlos Miller had 7 blocking attempts, 64.8, about average. Jalen Conyers, who was not utilized in the first 2 games much in the running attack, 18 run blocking scenarios, 63.2. And then Mason Tharp, who I'm going to start calling the right tackle, was an 82.7 in the rush block and was pivotal in at least 2 touchdowns, running his guy into the end zone once, again, from 20 yards out. So I say all that to say this. I don't think the offensive line performed any better than they did in the first 2 weeks. I think you just had a lot of motion, eye candy to veer the linebackers, and then you pulled well and used your tight ends in the running game and really had a lot of success. So that success that Kyle's going to talk about also led to some success in the play action. So I think we finally saw some complimentary football, and I'm very excited if this offense sticks around.
It did feel like all your worst runs came off of tempo, though. Like anytime you tried to get up to the line quick and run a quick run play, it felt like it went maybe 1 or 2 yards at most.
Yeah, and again, there were times in the first half you're snapping the ball with 15 seconds left on the clock, and a few times under 15. You ran 71 plays total. You're averaging 88. You ran 71 plays. And what did the efficiency do? Now, hey, cause, correlation, fine. It just looked to me like the more methodical offense where you could put Tharp in where you want him instead of changing formations on the fly and having him out where you don't want him, made the offense better. And the right tackle had a really good day because he was in position to succeed all day long.
Yeah, I didn't take note of this on the rewatch, but I wonder. I don't know. I wonder, like, over the last 2 years, what our substitution rate has been. Like, how often on offense do we swap in new personnel? But yeah, it seemed like you were subbing a little bit more, specifically trying to get the right number of tight ends on the field. By my count, there were at least 21 plays with multiple tight ends on the field. There were, I think, at least a couple more with 2 running backs on the field at the same time. And most of that was concentrated earlier in the game because by the last drive or 2, you have a lot of like redshirt freshmen, 4 wide receiver sets, and the tight ends were basically done for the day. So what I said in the write up on Patreon right after was you might have run something like 35% ish of your plays with multiple tight ends in the game, like before the last couple Hammond drives. That is a welcome change, and I wrote about that back in, I don't know, July or something, and wrote about in some of the games when the counter looks that you're talking about, Rob, where we're pulling a guard and a tackle or tackling a tight end. When we did that over and over and had success with Taj doing that, we would then go play action. One that sticks out to me, it was even a really bad play action look because either Barron or Taj went the wrong way, and they kind of just like ran into each other briefly in the backfield, and then we throw a post route to Dre McCray for a touchdown against TCU. And so you see stuff like that, and you're like, okay, I would love to see a lot more of that, especially with what we were told by the coaching staff, which grain of salt. We've got 3 NFL tight ends. Okay, we've got the best running back in the country. Okay, what's something you could do to meld those 2 things together? And I think you saw kind of the prototype of that on Saturday. It did set up play action, and you can't do that. To go back to the boxing analogy that we mentioned on Patreon after Laramie, you can't run play action against Wyoming and force the defense to sell out to stop Taj when you give him 11 carries all game. And that's what he got in Laramie. And it was part of the reason for our demise, in my opinion. When you run the ball on the first 7 plays of the game, you can make any team, but especially a team that plays with 3 high safeties that are dependent on those safeties crashing against the run, you can get them with play action. That's exactly what we did. We kind of got in a bind in the red zone, stalled out a little bit on that first drive. And it was, I think, a 3rd and 10, or like 3rd and goal from the 10 look when we throw our first pass of the game. It's play action. It didn't get anybody to bite too hard, but it freezes that linebacker for a split second. And then you throw it right past the window that he was probably supposed to be covering for a touchdown to Josh Kelly. Now, Baron Morton, by my count, threw 9 play action passes, and some of these could have been RPO. I don't really know. He was 7 for 9 for 189 yards and 4 touchdowns, but wait, it gets even better. His last 2 play action passes were the incompletion kind of deep down the sideline to Taj, and then a -1 yard check down to Conyers when he was facing some pressure. So his first 7 play action passes, he was 6 for 7 for 190 yards and 4 touchdowns. That sounds pretty gosh darn efficient to me. And will you match that ever again in your life? Probably not. But you also don't need to, throw 4 touchdowns on 7 attempts for 190 yards to be good. You just need to do it effectively. And I am confident with a bell cow like Taj, especially if you start him early and like you're talking about, Rob, you run the right kind of run looks. You can give him a pulling tight end look and then he leaks out into the flats. You can turn that into a wheel route behind a post to a post wheel kind of thing. All that is in play if you commit to running the ball early. We did exactly that. We executed play action really well. So that first one was to Josh Kelly in the red zone. John Carlos Miller is all alone down the middle on one of those because you freeze the safety on play action. Coy Akins froze the safety just enough. I think he had the corner beat by himself, but that safety probably gets over and at least doesn't make a 70-yard touchdown if it's not for play action. So you just killed him with it all game, and it was beautiful. It was not the first time. It's one of the few times I felt like I was watching our offense, and I was like, I understand what they're trying to do. I understand what they're trying to set them up for, and we're executing like level 1 really well, and then we go to the next level 2 really well. Everything was playing off of everything else, and there's really no complaints on the offensive side of the ball. We were in garbage time the final 35 to 40 minutes of the game. I mean, after 52-7, you can kind of throw any further analysis out the window because all those plays are garbage time. But it was beautiful. Some of those formations, some of those concepts, and I hope they continue to lean on it, especially some of those multi-tight end sets. I think you can create some pretty cool mismatches and do some fun stuff in both the run and pass game with that going forward.
Yeah, we were told this offseason you have 3 NFL tight ends. We used them. We saw them used. It was beautiful. I've got a prediction for you guys. You ready? Against Arizona State, you will be on the goal line or in a 4th down. They will pull Jalen Conyers across the formation, fake it to Taj, and throw to Conyers in the flats. That has been used here at Texas Tech in the past. I believe Cumbie had it in his playbook, used it, kind of overused it, but used it quite a bit to Travis Coombs. That will be used again. Bobby Slowick used it today for the Texans on 4th and 1. I mean, that play is just so good. You see it all the time in the NFL. Travis Kelce's made a career of it. Texas Tech needs to have that in their playbook because I think, obviously, with Taj, people are keen on him. People will start to key on Cam Dickey and Jacoby Williams, too. So we'll see.
It's like the laziest way possible to look at it. But even if you just look at receiving yards from tight ends in the Joey McGuire era, it's pretty fascinating what's happening this season. So you've got Conyers at 105 yards, John Carlos Miller at 82. Obviously, we're 3 games deep. Those aren't like Mackey numbers, but you look at the other tight ends. In 2023, you had Cup with 114 and Tharp with 178. 2022, you had Cup with 132 and Tharp with 100. So right now you've got Conyers averaging 35 yards per game. Again, nothing astonishing. I think that can actually get a lot better. John Carlos Miller at 27. And then 2023, Cup was at 9.5. Tharp was at 22.3. He caught only 18 balls. And then 2022, Cup had 11 yards per game and Tharp had 10. So you're seeing a lot more usage of the tight ends, but also a lot more big play capabilities. And I think even when they're not catching the ball or being used in passing plays, I think they're utilizing them well in the run game and initiating them as lead blockers. I think this is kind of starting to click. I would still like to see a lot more out of Jalen Conyers in the passing game. I think he just has so much to offer as a downfield threat that I'd like to see more of him in that and less of him in Wildcat. But I think you've got something.
Let me ask you all a question. Let's go back to last year. Let's say it's early November, like game 9 or 10, and it's 3rd and 5. Who is the offensive player who you want to put the ball in their hands?
Say the situation at 3rd and 5 from
3rd and 5 at midfield.
Okay. At midfield, probably Josh Brooks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say you don't get a good look to run it against, or Taj is winded. The entire stadium knows it's going to Taj. Who else are you trying to put the ball in their hands? Who's like your go-to in that spot?
Josh Kelly, RPO slant.
Last year.
Coy.
Last year? Yeah, Coy. I mean, Coy smash on the sideline. That's what they ran. I mean, yeah, nobody.
I think that's right. It's probably Coy on that slant or like a back shoulder. If I ask you that question again this year, or let's say it's 3rd and 8 or whatever, like you still have Taj. I don't know if you want to run it on 3rd and 8. Probably depends where you are on the field. But Coy's like number 4 on that list now. Ish. I mean, I don't know. I think Josh Kelly's definitely your number 1. Caleb Douglas has shown a lot. Coy Aiken has shown a lot. Like, he's not a bad option there.
Yeah.
And then you've got all these tight ends and your running back.
Well, and Micah Hudson. Don't forget, man.
So my point is, like the tight ends more involved in the passing game. Taj is still Taj. Coy Aiken is better than he was last year, and then Caleb Douglas and Josh Kelly are both better than really anything you had on the roster last year. And you saw some of that. I forgot how many guys caught a pass yesterday, 12 or something.
12, I believe, yeah.
But even before garbage time, when you're playing third stringers and stuff, if we're just in like one of our 2 or 3 base personnel packages, we've got 4 guys we can get the ball to in a key spot that I trust to kind of win their matchup, that we can scheme open. And you didn't have that last year.
Josh Kelly at 287 yards, 3 games in. That would have been the 5th most out of any Texas Tech receiver last year.
Yeah, I ran the calculations. Like, if hopefully, if everybody stays healthy, your top 3 receivers, I think, would have been Josh Kelly around like 1,200 yards and change, Coy Aiken 800 yards and change, and Caleb Douglas 500 yards and change. And whatever Caleb Douglas's total was, he would have been your leading receiver last year. He's going to be number 3 on this year's team with better tight end production as well. Like, that's how far you've come.
It's how far we've come, man. It's just how far we've come. Let's see. Do you mind if I'm on pace guy for a second?
Yeah.
Baron Morton is on pace for 3,896 yards, 40 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. That's just, 2.5 games of football. That is what we've been begging for. That's would be finally somebody over the Shimanek numbers.
You can say, the competition, that sample size also hopefully includes his worst game of the season. I know we still got however many hundreds of yards against Wazoo, but the 2 picks and all that, wasn't great. I don't know if he'll finish for 4,000 with 40 tutties and all that. Really the whole, I don't know, Washington State, I think Ted Koop's guy said basically everything that could have gone wrong did, and it was kind of the opposite against North Texas. And going forward, you're probably getting something in the middle of that.
100%.
But Baron Morton has played 2 games. You know, we love PFF on this podcast. 2 games where he's graded out 90 plus, and then 1 game where he graded out dreadful. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, you saw it on Saturday. Some of the throws he made were very impressive. You know, a lot of them guys were pretty open because of that play action stuff. But yeah, he's, you know, the question about him has always been health. And if he stays healthy, with those weapons around him, he could be on a pretty good trajectory here.
And I think if this just is what you are at home and what you are on the road, we have 5 more games at home and 4 on the road. So hopefully you can find some middle ground on the road to not be as bad as you've been. But again, I think you're back to the point where if you go 4-1 out at home and somebody beats you at home and then you get one on the road, you're back to thinking maybe 7-5, 8-4, 6-6. I think you're in that window, give or take one. So this comment, it's still crazy how we've been pining for Shimanek Numbies since his final year. Yeah, it took 3 or 4 years to start pining for it, but since you had 7 quarterbacks a year since, it's been hard to get back to those numbers. Yeah, so we need to get Baron Morton sleeved out and start making furniture, and maybe he can get those numbers again.
And relatedly, another way to look at the wide receiver production, Josh Kelly is definitely going to be. What's up?
Did you say relatedly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a word?
It is now?
Josh Kelly is going to basically obliterate your season leader in receiving yards every year since Antoine Wesley in 2018. Because that bar declared only about 750 yards. I think Easy and Jerron Bradley were both kind of right there in 2 different seasons. But your number 2 guy right now is on pace for 800 something. So very feasible that your number 2 guy actually clears what your number 1 guy has been each of the last 5 seasons. That would be a little bit remarkable. And of course, you're not really getting that without more productive quarterback play, which we seem to be trending towards. So, and then Taj, you know, the whole on pace guy thing for Taj is he going to break that record? And really stinks that he missed a game. That's obviously a setback, but he's played well enough in the other 2 that it's still, I think, pretty well within reach. I didn't look at the exact numbers, but I think if he finishes the season healthy and is at about 100 yards per game, which as much as we feed him, I think he'll get there. He should still have every chance to break that career rushing record.
Money, you're watching this Texans game?
Yeah, the line judge.
I feel bad for laughing. It wasn't even the line judge. It's some guy in a vest on the sideline. We've paused the game for about 5 minutes and hit at least one commercial break because a random official on the sideline stepped on one of the number triangles and I guess blew his knee out. He's on the cart. They've got him seatbelted to the cart.
I like the 3 slow-mo replays they did of him just backing up and falling over.
Yeah,
They even put like the reticle on him. Like, look here, guys. Watch this 80-year-old man just hit the deck really quick.
They showed it in slow-mo. And then they cut to him in the cart, all seatbelted in.
I wish, God rest his soul, I wish John Madden were still around to give us a breakdown with like the chalk. Like, you can see here, his right foot steps on the triangle thingy.
Oh my God. That's not funny, man. Why are you laughing? All right. Okay, so inevitably we're gonna get some comments later. It was North Texas. It's not gonna happen again. They're the worst defense in the world. But look what they did against Washington State. Oh, these defenses are way better in the Big 12. How replicatable is this offense moving forward? Again, just short term. Arizona State, who's 3-0. Did y'all see Toledo this weekend? Murder Mississippi State? Arizona State struggled in the second half against Mississippi State. Wyoming, god awful. They blew them out, 48-0. Lots of ass out there for Arizona State. But how replicatable is it, this offense? Because to me, Kansas State-esque, this is an offense that can just be run against anybody. And you look at last year's run game, which to me was not a run game. It was just Taj Brooks. There was some pulling and some movement on the offensive line, but mostly you're just running inside zone. And he's getting 100 yards a game and rushes for 1,500 yards. And they're stacking the box because you have a quarterback with one arm, and it's not the good arm. And you still ran the ball. So if you have a threat to throw and run, if Taj Brooks is healthy, this offense just seems like it can work well enough against anyone if the defense can be competent. And I think if your offense is, your defense can be. Now, my question off of this is Zach Kittley in control enough of his crazy side of his brain to be boring like this? It's not boring to score 66 points. Just flat out isn't. But is it boring for an offensive coordinator to run 10 straight run plays and then call the play action? Can Kittley stay out of his own way? And can Josh Cochran, the run game coordinator, get in his ear enough, right, moving forward? Can they share that bag and get into the bag together to make this offense boringly exciting? Can they do that together for a full season? Because if so, I think this offense trajectory is much, much higher than it was even after the ACU game, because I thought you just beat ACU defensively.
Yeah, I wouldn't get caught up on the results side of things. I don't think you're going to score 60 plus in another game this season. But if you can combine the run and let the run complement the pass like you did on Saturday, you can win a lot of football games. I think obviously you're going to have to be smart about the clock for that to happen, because I think you can beat a lot of teams scoring 30, 31 in the Big 12. But can you control the game to where that's enough for you? Obviously, your defense is going to be what it is. You're young in the secondary. Linebacker play has not been good this year. You're thin on the pass rush. But can you control the game with the run to a point where you let 4 touchdowns push you over the edge to a win? And I think this offense has all the tools. Like, Saturday is how it was supposed to look. To those interceptions, yeah, maybe you caught a break with those. But the way that you responded, the way you set up drives, the way you stayed ahead of the sticks, I think all of that is going to be huge on film to kind of glean from and to continually think about how can we put ourselves in a situation where we're, at 3rd and 3 and it's not 3rd and 15. And I think penalties obviously play a big part in that too, but in terms of all-around game control, I think you've got to mix that aspect and keeping penalties lower, controlling the clock, being mindful of your tempo, and allow Taj Brooks to do what he does, which is to get you a lot of yards, but also force a lot of defensive attention and really get your playmakers, your Josh Kellys, your Coy Aikens, your Jalen Conyers, get those guys into some space because the defense is collapsing onto the line of scrimmage. I think the blueprint is there. I think it just has to be continue to execute against Big 12 defenses, and you've got to have a solid grasp on the game and the flow of the game.
Completely agreed. And full transparency, I can't help but think there's a good chance Josh Cochran's fingerprints, run game coordinator, tight ends coach Josh Cochran, that his fingerprints were all over Saturday's game plan and play design, play install, because they were just straight up formations and looks that we have not seen before. One of them, we ran this 2 or 3 times. I think every time it was on like 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. I can't remember if it was that full house look or if there were just 2 guys in the backfield. but it was sort of a pistol look. And right before the snap, we motioned Taj behind the other back in the backfield, and it's just kind of like a lead dive. And we ran that 2 times. I've not seen that look before at Texas Tech. So, and then some of the other stuff they were doing, the play action. So yes, I really hope that there's enough kind of discipline, if you want to say it that way, to say let's go a little slower, let's sub a little more often, let's be intentional about when we run it and what we're setting up with the run, and that we don't just default to, because it seems to me like when we don't really know what to do or we're not sure something's going to work, we just kind of default to that sideline pass, the tempo, and that seemingly is when we get into trouble. Um, it would go against, I think, some of the things that some of the coaches want to base their identity on. Yeah, they clearly want to go fast on offense, but I don't know. There's kind of a different thrill or pleasure in, I don't know, building up to a crescendo and knowing like, hey, we're not going for the kill shot on every play, and we're gonna run it for 4 or 5 yards 6 times, and then hit them with a kill shot on a play action pass or something. I really liked Saturday's offense a lot better than Washington State or Abilene or anything we ran last year while Barron was hurt, and I know we were limited. But yeah, this is what I wanted to be the bread and butter all off season when we brought in these tight ends, great weapons at wide receivers. Like, hey, let's choose our spots wisely. Let's use Taj to kind of get everybody else open. Saturday was a masterclass. I don't think you're going to get 3 interceptions on your own side of the field, one of them a pick six every game, and you're not going to score 66 again, but you don't have to, like y'all are saying. There's a pretty clear path, in my opinion, to playing a lot of games in the 30s. And if your defense can hang on a little bit, you'll be in a lot of Big 12 games in the fourth quarter if you play like that, in my opinion. So this is 100% the offensive style and philosophy I would like to see us deploy going forward.
The Texas Tech schedule right now. Can you score 35 against Arizona State?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you score 35 against Cincinnati, both at home?
Yes.
Can you score 28 against Arizona on the road?
I don't know.
On the road, probably to be seen.
Yeah, I would love to see something on the road before I predict anything on the road.
Can you score 35 against Baylor at home?
Sure.
Bunny, were you gonna say something?
Yes.
Sorry, I can't see you. I'm looking at the schedule. I just heard a whisper or something. TCU on the road, 28.
Yeah, Browse will give you 4 more possessions than you should have.
Especially in the red zone.
That's fair.
Now, Iowa State, probably points come lightly in that when they look pretty good. Can you outscore Colorado?
Yes.
I mean, I just feel like you can score some points here. Friday Gordon and Alan Bloman, can you score on them? And
Let's hope that doesn't catch on. Really don't want that to catch on.
We don't want that to catch on.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, this kind of goes back to what I was saying about the Wazoo game. Was maybe you don't win, and I know we've had enough fourth down discourse. I'm not trying to rehash that, but I don't know. You could have made that a more competitive game at the very least, like giving yourself a shot in the second half. And if our offensive philosophy is less like, oh, analytics, tempo, whatever, and more like, okay, it didn't work on this possession, but we're confident, we can draw it up for the next possession or be a little more efficient with different line of attack, different personnel groups. I think that keeps you in more games. Like if you play like you did against Wazoo, so many things went wrong. You're not going to be in a lot of these. But yeah, I mean, if you're running that kind of offense, in my opinion, and executing it at anywhere near as efficient as you did on Saturday, I don't see a team on the schedule you just think like, yeah, when the fourth quarter starts, we're probably not going to be in that game. Like this offense should be good enough with the pieces you have and some of the concepts you've laid out to, Yeah, be in the 20s, 30s going into the fourth quarter, and unless your defense is just getting steamrolled, you should have a shot.
I did a Team A, Team B this week on Twitter. Team A was 5.2 yards per play, 0.527 points per play, 35% to 65% run to pass. So they run 35%, pass 65%, and a 31.25 third down conversion rate. And that is, again, 0.527 points per play is the only kind of good stat there. Team B was 5.6 yards per play, so more than them. 0.182 points per play, so well below that mark. Rush to pass is more to 70 to 30 than 35 to 65. And then third down conversion percentage, 52.63, so much better than Team A. Team A was Oklahoma State. And you think efficient offense, 0.527 points per play is around top 20. I think they're at 17 now. And then Texas Tech's 0.182 points per play was just awful. Now, a lot of that is scoring 16 on 89 plays or whatever they ran in Washington, at Washington State. Do you want to guess after 66 points what their points per play is now?
Man, 0.6.
Yeah, 0.513. So they've shot up. They're in the top 30 now. And the rest of those stats, your 60-40 run pass, which I like, or pass run, I guess I should say, 60-40. Third down conversion still right at 50%. Your red zone scoring is way up to 90%. And you're at 6.7 yards per play, 6.7, which is a full yard and a half better than you were before the game. And again, you're not going to have a game like this every week, but this is the dream offense. Everything went right. The scheme was perfect, the plan was perfect, and the execution was near perfect. So I can't say enough good things. And we've run down the offense in the past. I have. I'm not going to put everyone here. I have for sure. After Washington State, I came out here and I said, I don't want to call for Zach Kitley's job, but the offense sucked. The scheme sucked. The execution sucked. I did not like it. And I've not liked a lot of the scheme and effort that they've put forward on the offensive side of the ball in the last 10 years at Texas Tech. And then Joey McGuire comes out and says, I know you guys love the air raid. You're not going to want to hear this, but I want more defense. And I just wanted to reach through the screen. I'm at the studio and say, who's we? Who's you guys? I don't want that. And they went away from it this week. The air raid died. And they burned the air raid and said, let's run the Kansas State offense. Somebody mentioned that on the podcast last week. They moved the offensive line. They involved the tight ends. And they ran the damn ball and threw the play action pass. Kyle Shanahan couldn't have called that game better. Clint Kubiak couldn't have called that game better, though he dominated the Cowboys today.
Kevin O'Connell, right?
Kevin O'Connell could not have called a better game, though he did call the 97-yard touchdown pass today. Did you see the official on that?
Yeah, moving,
cooking. Was that Chris Snead? I think it's just an incredible effort. And again, I don't want listeners and fans to say, oh, the Gauchos said this is going to be the offense every week. I don't expect that. What I do hope, let me choose my words carefully. What I do hope will happen the rest of the season is that scheme remains. Because if you go back to this Washington State scheme, if, God forbid, if Taj Brooks gets hurt again or misses another game, and you abandoned what you did this weekend in favor of what you did in Pullman, I'm going to lose it. Because Cam Dickey and Jacoby Williams can do enough in the run game. They're not Taj Brooks yet, but they can do enough with these tight ends blocking to have a credible run game. And something I don't think I said enough last week is that screen game is the extension of the run game. Leach used to always talk about that. So they were trying to run the ball last week in Pullman to no success, or I guess to 6.8 yards per carry, whatever he said it was in the press conference. But I want this offensive coordinator and run game coordinator to continue to do what they did this weekend, or at least attempt to.
Let's go back in time almost 3 years ago, gentlemen. Joey McGuire's opening press conference. He is not named an offensive coordinator yet, but he's explaining the style of play that he wants to employ at Texas Tech. And he says, we will play defense in Lubbock, and we're going to play complementary football. Which what I've learned over the last couple of weeks is some people are a little bit unclear on what that means, and maybe it's a little bit open for interpretation. I'm not going to ask you a yes or no. I'm going to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10. When Joey said we're going to play complementary football, which, so my interpretation of that is like the offense and defense are going to play off of each other. Within the offense, the run and pass are going to play off of each other, and so on. And Joey initially hired Sonny Cumbie to be his offensive coordinator. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most complimentary, 1 being the least, where did that hire land on the scale of complimentary football in y'all's eyes?
6.5.
Maybe like 5.
I was going to say 6, so we're all in the same neighborhood. Cumbie takes a job at Law Tech. Good for him. Joey hires Zach Kitley.
2.
Okay, I was about to say, I know in hindsight, it doesn't seem that way, but even at the time, if I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt, I'm like, okay, maybe they could work this offense like 4.
2.
But that's probably with scarlet and black tinted glasses on. Money, what say you?
Yeah, probably like a 3.
Okay, again, let's call it 3. The offense we saw on Saturday, scale of 1 to 10.
10. Give it a 10, baby.
Yes. So it's not even just like it's, Kitley or not. Like Kitley was the OC when it was a 10. Kitley was an OC when it was a 0 some games that we've played. Like, I know we can play this style of football. And that style of football, we talked about Joey being Joey, going back to what kind of football he wants to play, what kind of football made him successful. Rocky 3, punching the meat. And that's what it looked like to me. Like, when Joey's talking at his opening press conference in November of 2022, he's saying complimentary football. I'm like, okay, like, we're going to run the ball. We're going to use a tight end. We're going to have play action. It's not going to be tempo. It's not going to be Mike Leach air raid. And mostly, that has not been the case. But on Saturday, I was like, this is exactly what I thought we were going to get. It's exactly what I wanted, and this is exactly what I want to continue doing going forward, no matter who the offensive coordinator is.
You know that high school football clip in the locker room after a win? The guy's like, oh, I think I got my swagger back. That's Joey this week. Joey went back to his roots, I feel. In Kitley's press conference, how we doing, guys? He came in and he said he was about to go to a run game meeting. I kind of scoffed. I was like, oh, God, what's a run game meeting at Texas Tech? We're just going to talk about how Taj looks in practice. But to their credit, again, it was a credible, not incredible, but credible offensive scheme this week. And we talked about just the first 3 drives earlier. Look, I'm not a savant, okay? Maybe an idiot savant, mostly idiot when it comes to football. But I can't understand why more coaches don't just put more blockers in front of their runners, right? I mean, that seems easy. Now, every once in a while, you want to run a counter and you send the house that way and you run the guy the other way. Okay, motion, fine. But it just seems to me to put trips left with the tight end on the left and then to run outside zone right just doesn't make any sense, especially when they don't shade toward the trips or quads or whatever it is. So I just thought you ran really smart plays this weekend, and I want to see that for the rest of the year. I'm probably belaboring the point at this point.
I'm gonna frame it one more way, and then I'll quit beating a dead horse. Yes or no? It's a good thing when Taj has the ball in his hands.
Yes.
Okay, but there is a point of diminishing returns. Like if we agree he can only touch it 30 times a game before he gets too tired, is it better to run 70 plays or 95 plays?
70 plays.
Because if it's 70, he can touch the ball on 3 out of 7, which is, I don't know, what, 42.5% or something? Someone do some math for me. If it's 3 out of 90, that's 1 in 3. And that might not sound like a huge difference.
That's 33%.
Right. So 42% ish. I don't know. I'm guessing on 3 out of 7. I didn't take the time to do that math before the podcast. Would you rather him touch the ball 12% more often per game? I would. And so this is where, again, I think the tempo can, if you want to use it in spots because it's an advantage, okay, great. But we saw a lot more slowing it down and subbing for the right personnel, and I seem to like that a lot better than I've ever liked watching tempo.
Bears are so stupid. Go Texans. What am I cheering for the Bears for? Yeah, I agree, Kyle. And if you don't run more than 75 plays in any game the rest of the year, I'll be happy. That means you're controlling the clock, or they are, I guess. But it feels more efficient that way. Tech Hoops guy can come on here and say that momentum doesn't exist and never punt or whatever he was saying on Wednesday on the Patreon episode. You can listen to it, patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos. But how important was it to just kick the damn field goal on the second drive of the game, get points on the board, and keep moving forward? Now, you go for it there and you get a touchdown. Hey, all's good that ends well, right? But if you miss that, or if there's an incomplete pass, or your running back misses 2 blocks and you don't get the fit right, who knows what happens? Maybe they score in one play and the incomplete game tenor changes.
I believe in that. I don't think you don't win the game or whatever based on that field goal. And I know for a fact that Tech Hoops guy is smarter than me, and he could probably refute any of this with like numbers and stuff.
Sure, yeah.
But it also,
hey,
I don't know, at some point,
it exists outside of numbers.
Yeah, and I think he even kind of admitted that because he was like, you can do analytics and then quantify it however you want. Say like, oh, well, it's 3% if we have the momentum or not, and like,
Yeah,
but at that point, you're kind of making up the numbers, and so what purpose do the numbers serve? I don't know. It's like I know he's smarter than me, and he could probably convince me I'm wrong on this. But I thought the same thing. I was like, just take the points. Why would you give a group of 5 team an opportunity for a big momentum swing? Like, just take the points. Your offense is doing fine. And that's exactly what happened. You took the points and you scored a touchdown on like basically every other possession. But yeah, I mean, I know people. I don't know. I guess debate sports cliches like is momentum real or not. I know when I'm watching a game and we stop somebody on 4th down in the red zone, it feels like a boon to our sideline. So I don't know. Again, I'm sure he could. If you gave him 30 minutes, he could probably convince me that I'm wrong on that and force me to change my mind with like stats and logic and stuff, but that's how I feel about it.
How great was the crowd, by the way, early at 11 a.m. and early in the game before it's 52-7, because it did clear out late. But how great was the crowd? I thought they affected the game. And it was sparse to start, but I thought it was pretty full by the end of the first and through the second. You guys were taking it in on TV since you live out of town. You obviously try to get back to Lubbock as much as possible. But just how important was that crowd? It was very white because it was a whiteout. It was very diverse. Lubbock's a very diverse fan base, but everyone was wearing white for the whiteout. Just good showing. There was a lot of students there, and you heard the students in one particular part of the game at the end of the first half. Micah Hudson is in the game. You're driving, and taps his helmet to leave the game. Okay, and starts running off the field. The student section, I'm assuming it was the student section. It sounded like the student section. Started booing pretty relentlessly. And at 52-7 or whatever it was, you're like, okay, like, all right, go back out there, Micah. Give the people what they want. So Caleb Douglas had come on the field for Micah Hudson. Caleb Douglas runs off the field. Micah comes back on, and there's a chorus of cheers. Now, Micah Hudson in the second half was targeted twice, caught a ball, and then there was an interception on a target to him that just should not have been thrown. And then he caught one over the middle, and I thought he was going to get out of the tackle. So did Joey. He said in the presser afterwards. And then today on Twitter, I'm scrolling around. I made a joke that I saw a Facebook post. It wasn't a joke. I literally saw a Facebook post after the game complaining about the attendance because it was so empty at the end of the game. After that game, people are complaining about attendance. But then today, some idiot on Twitter is arguing with 4 or 5 different Tech fans about how that game basically didn't matter because you can't find a way to use Micah Hudson in the first half. And it just does not make sense to me. Now, I get that game is a blowout, and the students wanted Micah Hudson because it was a blowout and they wanted to see the 5-star. But, I mean, how did that feel for Caleb Douglas? Getting booed off the field because people want to see Micah Hudson. And it baffles me in some respects that this is even an issue, because it doesn't seem or feel like an issue for Micah Hudson, who is celebrating with his teammates and enjoying his time. There was a social media hoax, I guess, this week because he deleted some stuff and then he put some other stuff up. People are weird with social media, man. If that kid wants to delete all his posts one week and add a bunch of posts the next week, that's his prerogative. You just can't read into an 18-year-old's Instagram usage. You could try. But what did you guys think about the cheering and booing of Micah Hudson on and off the field?
Well, I haven't done a segment today, so I'll go on a Ryan was right segment. Caleb Douglas, talked about him all off season. I think that dude's the truth. I really feel like he can end up being one of these guys that ends up sneaking in the end of round 6, round 7 in the NFL draft. I think he's got the intangibles, the measurables, a couple of missed balls at this point in the season that I thought he should have come down with. But if he can shore up the hands a little bit, I think it makes a lot of sense just because he looks like an NFL receiver. But yeah, to be booing off that guy who I legitimately think looks like an NFL player, obviously still some improvement to be made, but has been really, really solid for you at this point. I think he's still got a lot of upside. It's wild to me, and it just kind of feels like that one aunt who just always has a problem with something, like the turkey on Thanksgiving is too dry, or the waitress at the Italian restaurant hasn't refilled your Diet Coke more than 2 times during your meal. But you're still getting free breadsticks, right? And that's what I feel like this offense is. And there's a lot of things on the table. You've got the tour of Italy, you've got the breadsticks, the salad, the Toscana soup. There are plenty of options, and all are good things. But sometimes you got to opt for another breadstick over, sneaking in another bowl of salad. And I kind of feel like that's where this offense is at. It makes the most sense on paper, even if Micah Hudson wasn't injured, for him to kind of be on the outside looking in, just because there is so much experience in this receiving core, and also just size, which I feel like is kind of an underrated aspect that we haven't talked a lot about. that I think you've been lacking in recent years. I think you saw kind of the potential of that with guys like Vasher and Ezukama, and then Bradley looked like he could be one of those guys, and it didn't pan out. But I mean, last year, like your best receiver is Xavier White, Miles Price. Obviously, Okoye is a part of that group, but these are short, speedy guys. And what typically works best in a downfield, high passing offense is physical receivers who are tall, who can go up and win one-on-one matchups. It just feels like you have all the tools to make that offense work. And I would obviously love to see more of Micah Hudson because I think he's exciting, but I also don't think it's derailing our season. I'm also not going to be up in arms about it because it just makes logical sense.
There's this like expression that has popped up in the last few years. It's like fans proclaiming to others, like, don't tell me how to fan. Are y'all familiar with that?
Yep.
I kind of get it, especially now that I live out of town and have kids, and like I can't be as good of a fan as other people who, like, no matter what, can go to every game and all that. But there's also kind of a limiting principle on that. Like, if you are at the game with your kids and you're like drunk and shirtless and yelling slurs at the referees, that's not good. And I have no problem telling you, quote unquote, how to fan in that instance. And there's obviously a lot of like space in between being normal and that kind of behavior. But I would, so I'm kind of trying to say two things. One, I think I'm wise enough to know that you're not going to convince people to change how they feel about something. And so I'm not going to try to dissuade anybody from obsessing over Micah Hudson. But I do think they're wrong to obsess over it on social media. And I don't know, to me, it's kind of a pathetic look. And I wish they wouldn't do it. But we've spent enough time on this. We're going to spend enough time on this every week because I'm sure it'll be the same story for a while. He's not ever going to play as much as the fans want him to. And I kind of get it. But I also kind of don't, like, based on everything Money just said. You've got really good players on the field at his position. There's nothing Micah Hudson could have done to slow down Maverick McIver 2 weeks ago. There's nothing Micah Hudson could have done to keep you from getting absolutely demolished by Wazoo. And, you know, it was garbage time halfway through the second quarter against North Texas. And so it just didn't really play into the strategy that much. So yeah, I think it is out of pocket to be like booing not only really anybody wearing the scarlet and black, but like a good player who is a positive contributor for your team, has never said anything, done anything off-putting that I'm aware of. Just because you're kind of obsessed with one guy because he had more stars coming in. Micah's time will come. It might not be in game 2 or game 3 of his true freshman year after he sat out all spring. And I wish our fans would be a little bit more patient. I know, again, I'm not naive. I understand why they're not. Like, he's the best prospect that has ever come through here. So I get it. But I also think we could exercise a little bit of self-control and have a little bit more determination over how we behave in response to maybe not liking his amount of playing time.
Two things here. The student section at that point in the game doesn't bother me. I don't think they're booing Caleb Douglas as much as booing Micah Hudson leaving the field. He tapped his helmet. They just don't understand exactly what's going on. It's hard to see that. He won it off. They put it back on. They cheered. Haha, it's fun. It was 50-0, 50-7, whatever it was. Grown man on Twitter 24 hours after the game writing paragraphs to other fans calling them stupid because he's convinced that Micah Hudson will transfer if he doesn't play. That's stupid. Don't fan that way. If you want to tell me, don't tell me how to fan.
Don't tell me how to fan.
Stop being a jackass. How about
I'm a
that?
grown man embarrassing myself on the internet. Don't tell me what to do.
And I try not to. I try not to tell people how to be a fan. That's fine. If you want to, bitch and moan about how the offense is run, I do it too. I do it into a microphone. I get paid for it weekdays. That's fine. Do whatever you want. Go start a blog. This just seems dumb to me, and I'm going to say it. You look stupid. And if Micah Hudson transfers at the end of the year or next year, and you come and start showing all your receipts, it's still stupid. All right? I'm talking to you, guy on the internet, arguing with people all day long, 24 hours after a 66-21 win. Stupid. Man, I just can't get over how fun it was yesterday in Lubbock, Texas, for a game against North Texas. Lots of people coming in, enjoying the space around the campus of Texas Tech, one of the largest contiguous football facilities in the world, one of the largest campuses in the world by square foot. You got bars across the street. You've got fancy food, wine, art, music, cold Coors Light at the Overton after the game with Rob Bro and the Double T 97.3 Coors Light postgame show. It's just a beautiful atmosphere. And it was against North Texas. You know what, Kyle? It's going to be again, money, this weekend at 2:30 for Arizona State. By the way, Visit Lubbock is a proud partner of Dave Campbell's Texas Football and the Gamblin Gauchos podcast. I encourage you to check out Mike Craven's game preview on TexasFootball.com. And later in the week, a Gamblin Gauchos preview where you'll see not only Craven and the Gauchos insights, but also Visit Lubbock has put together a guide for all things to do, can't miss experiences, and where to stay if you're traveling in to Lubbock for the game. If you're listening, if you're an Arizona State fan, if you're a Cincinnati fan, you're coming down, visit Lubbock.com. People don't know Lubbock. Kyle, money, sometimes people are stupid, like I just talked about. Sometimes they're ignorant, okay? They just don't know, and that's okay. So when people run down Lubbock far and wide and say there's nothing to do there and it smells like cow, whatever, they just don't know. They're ignorant. So educate yourself. Go to visitlubbock.org. Find out about Lubbock. Find out what all there is to do. We don't have Disneyland, but not everybody's a Disney adult, right? And if you don't want to be a Disney adult and you want to be a real adult, come to Lubbock. Visit Lubbock.org. All right.
Hey.
That's on TexasFootball.com. Yes.
So great ad read.
Thank you.
But you actually left off my favorite thing about Lubbock.
Oh, what is that?
The people.
Okay. Thank you.
Shout out Matt Wells.
Yeah, we also have great Little League coaches here in Lubbock. Y'all ready to do just a couple of questions from the mailbag?
Sure.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding. All right. Let's see. Let me scroll all the way up here. By the way, hey, exponential growth here on the Patreon and Discord the last couple of weeks. And I feel like some of that is when the team stinks, everyone wants to commiserate. Hey, after a big win, it's fun too. Come join us on Patreon, patreon.com/Gamblin Gauchos. The Body Blows articles have been incredible this week. Shout out to Kyle. And last week after a win and a loss. We've got some celebrities in the Discord. I can tell you who. I don't know if they want you to. Oh, by the way, I met several Gauchos fans this week, and I don't mind shouting them out. Clark Lambert, hell of a handshake. That guy. very firm, and a little long. I mean, a good 3-4 seconds passed when I thought it should end, but he was still shaking, so I was. Very nice, Clark Lambert. Big fan of Kyle. And then also Mason Tharp's dad, met him. That guy's jacked. I wouldn't expect anything less. I've never met the guy before. Met him pregame. Also a very nice handshake, very firm. I have one more thing. I have a problem with handshakes. I don't feel like I move in fast enough. Okay. And I get pre-gripped often. Do you know what a pre-grip is, Money? So you're going in for the handshake, and the other guy comes in and just grabs you like this. And so then you only have thumb pressure. And it's not that I have a bad handshake. I'm slow to you got to get before you squeeze. And they're always pre-gripping me. Great handshakes with Lambert and Mr. Tharp. Very nice.
There's three elements to a good handshake.
Yeah.
The first one is web-to-web contact. The web right there, that's where your thumb meets your index finger.
Yeah.
Second one is eye contact. And the third one is you do 3 pumps. So web-to-web, eye contact, 1, 2, 3, and then it's over. I think that would avoid the confusion you're talking about. Was like, is this a quick handshake? Is it a long one? It's 3 pumps, and then you're done.
Yeah, I gotta get, and that's on me. I gotta get better on web-to-web. That's just something I've always struggled with. There's an old farmer in Childress, Texas. I worked in Childress, Texas one summer, and he went to the church there, and he pre-gripped me one time at the beginning of the summer. So it was his mission to pre-grip me the rest of the summer. And after that, I got better at handshakes, but the guy pre-gripped me last week, and I thought about it all week. So when I saw Clayton Tharp coming down the line, I thought, well, Mason comes down the line strong. Clayton's going to as well. So, yeah, I really got out there. And I thought I got one in good on Clark Lambert too, but he's a good handshaker. And then another listener found me before the pregame show too. So just wanted to shout out Clayton Tharp. He was very complimentary of the podcast, and shout out to Mr. Tharp. Your son had a great game.
Did he tell you? I don't think you would mind me saying. I met him briefly at the bowl game last year. Interesting family dynamics in that obviously his son is a Red Raider. I think he is an A&M grad. I think his daughter played soccer at OU. That household, the combined hatred for the University of Texas has to be off the charts. Like, you can't pick 3 schools that dislike Texas as much as those 3.
Number 1 Texas with a graphic from Arch Manning.
Dude, 21 miles an hour?
Hey.
I didn't know he could do that.
No. I'm glad he's in the SEC. He looked pretty good. All right. I'm trying to get to the North Texas questions here. I didn't ask all the ones from last week because it was me and Tech Hoops guy, and I didn't want to put him through that. I do not mind putting you guys through this. I didn't understand this one, Kyle, because I don't know what the 2001 Pepsi 400 is. But he was rewatching the 2001 Pepsi 400 finish, and it got me thinking, does anyone else miss watching the flash bulbs from cameras in the stands at nighttime events? I do miss them. Have you guys watched any Detroit Lions football this year?
No, only a little bit last Sunday night, but really not much.
Did you notice the effect they have going after touchdowns? The crowd looks like a 1980s prize fight with all the flash bulbs going on in the background.
So I do miss that. I think I remember like the very first Super Bowl I ever watched. They have that kind of wide shot at the kickoff, and there's so many of those flash bulbs. I don't think this really helps you connect the dots on this question, but the 2001 Pepsi 400 was the first race at Daytona after Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s passing, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. won that race.
Gotcha.
So yes, it was a huge moment, lots of flash bulbs, and I think the grandstands at Daytona seat like This sounds crazy, but I think it's like 125,000 people or something like that, and it was packed. So yeah, a lot of people there, a lot of flashes.
With the additions coming to the Pac-12, and if California and Stanford return, do you think the conference will be worth an automatic qualifier bid in the college football playoff? So I believe the language here, nobody has an automatic qualifier just because they're in their conference. It's just the 4 highest ranked conferences. Is that true? The 5 highest ranked conferences, and then an at-large. That's right. And then the 4 highest ranked will have the buys.
One, is this being legitimately discussed, or is this like Twitter burners talking about it?
The Pac-12?
Yeah.
So they added for 2026 Fresno State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Boise State. And the
Right.
Twitter burners are discussing Calford going back.
Okay, then that's what I meant. Like Stanford, Cal.
Yeah.
I don't think Stanford and Cal are the difference between being a power conference and not, respectfully.
No, but regionally it makes a lot of sense for them to be in the Pac-12. I think
Oh yeah.
a lot of people had like I guess it was photoshopped, shots of them with Pac-12 logos and stuff. So I think it makes sense for them to be Pac-12 teams. No, I don't think they're the difference, but I do think they should find a way to get out of that grant of rights they're in. It's going to be a nightmare to get out of because they just signed in. But the 4 corner schools, I think they should stay in the Big 12, and that's me, a Big 12 fan, saying that. But I just don't think the Pac-12 is viable or as viable as what the Big 12 offers. And a lot of people are running out of sports money. You've seen it with ESPN. You've seen it with Fox. They've kind of reached their limit with these bigger conferences. And the pie is already gone around. And I don't know that there's enough pie left for the Pac-12 with the new state of college athletics. So there's that. Can the CW pay enough? Power rank all the touchdowns from Saturday. And I believe this is specifically the Texas Tech touchdowns. I'll read them if you want them.
Can I do tiers?
Yes.
Tier 1 is the Taj Brooks mouthpiece touchdown, as well as the Braylon Lux pick 6 and the John Carlos Miller play action where there's nobody within a country mile of him.
And the dunk.
Yes. I think that's all I'm putting in tier 1. Tier 2 would be Aiken. What else would be in tier 2? I'm trying to think of them all. I hated the Baron Morton quarterback keeper. I just don't want him running.
I love that.
Like maybe once a game.
Yeah, well, it's wide open.
Which is all they did, yeah.
You're missing the first one to Josh Kelly.
Yeah, tier 3.
And then the Jalen Conyers pass at the flats.
Tier 2. Love the play design.
And then Jacoby Williams and Cam Dickey both getting in from 3 and 1 respectively.
Love that because of the young guns. They can go in tier 2. Hey, Hammond plus those 2 running backs. I like that.
Yeah, we went off. We just really talked the first half there. We didn't talk much about Will Hammond. Maybe there's a question in the mailbag here. Do you have any different thoughts on the touchdowns, Money?
I might put the Lux pick 6 in a tier of its own. That was a nice one. Anytime your defense scores, it's a good sight to see.
Yeah, I kind of felt bad for Larry Moore on that play. AJ McCarty, who, I don't know, maybe weighs $185, kind of got the better of Larry Moore right at the goal line, throwing one final block. I think it was more that he lost his balance and footing, but it's not a good look to get run over by a DB when you're a left or right tackle.
We didn't really talk about the defense at all today either. I noticed they're running more 3-man front 2-star. Brennan Jordan and AJ McCarty are both on the field. We talked about this on another episode, maybe after the ACU game. That Kyle, you noticed it. I wonder if that is. A bit of, I don't know, necessity because of injury, or if that is just because they thought they were going to pass a lot and it's kind of their dime package. I would like to see moving forward. Arizona State, Scattaboo is going to run. Cincinnati, they're going to run a bunch. With Kiner, I think is his name. So we'll see in the next 2 weeks what happens there. Is Jeffers the last Tech player to make a pick six?
Dunlap had one last year, right?
Malik. Yeah, Dunlap, and then Muddy Waters had one against Florida International. They got hurt the rest of the year. Dunlap had one against
Tarleton.
And you needed it. Woof. We are now 1-0 with Micah Hudson having at least 5 receiving yards. Should we start relying on him more?
I mean, it sounds like to me, first play of the game, you throw him a 6-yard hitch and automatic win. I will say, Rob, I do my best to not present any like disingenuous stats. I share things that I find interesting or notable. I
You
wish
try to add
that
context, maybe?
do what?
You try to add context a little bit.
Well, I wish that people that maybe don't understand them, not like as well as me. I'm not saying like I'm the gold standard or anything. But like if you don't understand them at all, maybe don't like use a large platform to misinform people. Like after this one grinds my gears. After last week's loss to Wazoo, people were saying that like FPI had you going 3-9 because you were favored in 3 games, not favored. That's not how probability works. Because probably 5 of those were games where you had like a 40% chance to win. So that's not 0-5. That's the most likely outcome there is 2-3. But so there was that, and then there was the 4th down conversions discourse. It was like, hey, every time you go for it on 4th down a lot, you end up losing. So, well, you're probably more aggressive on 4th down when you're already trailing. And when you're already trailing, you're probably going to lose. So we didn't beat North Texas because we were less aggressive on 4th down. We beat them by 45 because we had like no need to go for it on 4th down. So it's like, it's like reaching the conclusion that ice cream cones increase drowning deaths when in reality people are just swimming and eating ice cream during the same months of the year.
Right.
Like there's a reason why nobody eats ice cream and nobody drowns in February.
Right. Cause, correlation, that kind of stuff.
If you go for it on 4th down 18 times in a game, you're probably down by 50.
Yeah, it's like Texas Tech is 1-0 this season when scoring 7 touchdowns.
Just run the 7 touchdown play,
Yeah. Did you rebook your plans for the playoff game in Lubbock the weekend before Christmas?
No, because we're winning the Big 12.
Okay. What an analogy. That's why he's the best in the business, folks.
I can't take credit for it. That was from a statistics textbook in high school. I just have a good memory.
Hey, but you held on to it and used it in proper context, which is what a lot of people don't do with their stats.
Yeah, a lot of people sit there in high school and they go, I'm never going to use this. And I said to myself, I'm going to use this in 14 years when I'm on a podcast with my friends.
Yeah, that's like when you read the Spanish textbook and Pablo recites a poem, Dos Bandidos de San Juan, piden queso, piden pan, Dos Bandidos de San Juan. You're never going to use that. And then, the correct context comes up when you're talking about forgetting things out of textbooks 20 years ago. All right. Is anyone drinking Kitley Kool-Aid?
I bet my sophomore Spanish teacher thought that I was going to forget the Victor Jara song that we learned.
Yeah.
About, it's called El Cigarrito, and it's about tobacco field workers, and it's a working class kind of anthem. I bet you thought I was going to forget about that, but Miss Johnson, I did not forget. I remember.
Yeah, and I bet they also thought we would forget about the cat on the tin roof. Yeah, Senor Delgato is a cat on a tin roof is where he sat. Yeah, we remember, man. Can I finish this question before it's awkward? Is anyone drinking Kitley Kool-Aid after this win, or is he still on the hot seat? What does it take for him to get off of it? It seems like he should be a higher bar than just any bowl win.
I'm drinking a different flavor of Kool-Aid. I'll leave it there. But the offense, the first what?
You just shouldn't leave it there. I don't know what that means.
I wouldn't. I'm gonna leave it there.
All right.
But the first 2 years when he was offensive coordinator, we were really bad nationally in yards per play. I think we're something like I looked it up this one. I think we're like 30th right now, which is good. And if we duplicate anything close to what we saw on Saturday, it might even climb higher. That's against FBS competition only, so it doesn't include ACU. But yeah, I mean, that would be a big jump to go from, I don't know, 70s, 80s, 90s. I can't remember what we were the first couple years under Kitley. But if you go from that to the 30s, pretty good.
You're 24th.
Is that FBS only, though?
I
mean, it doesn't matter. 24th or 30th. It's a market improvement over the last couple years.
Somebody says USOB too late. I'm not sure what that's about. What does that mean? Is there a fan base feeling worse in their team than Florida State? Who feels the worst in the Big 12 today? West Virginia at 1-2?
Honestly, in a way, I think it might be TCU because of how far they fell from a national championship game appearance.
Yeah, more
They've
like
obviously,
kind of yikes, huh?
yeah, I don't know if they're like out on them, but I think they're just starting to like wonder. I saw something today that they're like 8-10 since the Big 12 championship game or something.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And, a couple of them are like, blown lead or, we got blown out by Iowa State or, whatever. So I don't know if they're just like done with him, but I think they're like, how is this happening if we were a 13-win team 2 years ago?
Man, I thought you shared that with me. I guess you didn't. Yeah, I did see that, though. That is not good. Somebody says Kansas. They're also 1-2. I mean, are they like the cross-eyed guy and the water boy saying, "Oh no, we suck again"? Yeah. I mean, West Virginia's not feeling great at 1-2. TCU has to be frustrated even at 2-1. They didn't look good against Stanford, beat them, and then beat Long Island.
Got the iron skillet this weekend.
Yeah, and SMU doesn't look good. Houston, dominated Rice, so there's that. We saw lots of action from the second and third string guys. What did you see that was extremely encouraging? Can be specific or depth of certain position groups. You know what? Thank you for telling us how to answer your question. As a Lukester.
Hammond was really good. And I think Jacoby Williams has got something. I think he's going to be a really good back. Obviously, really excited about Dickey. I think you saw some of that last week as well. But I got to check his yards per carry at this point in the season because I think he's carried it probably about 15 times, and he's got to be sitting at around 5.5 or 6, I'd imagine, because it feels like he just finds a way to really eat yards every time the ball's in his gut.
Kyle, what did you see from the young guys?
A lot of the same, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but compiled Cam Dickey's numbers so far this season, and feels like you have a legitimate number two option. Certainly, he's not 50-50 with Taj, but that was something that really never developed or materialized last year, which is why Tyler Shuck finished second on the team in carries despite missing 8.5 games, 9.5 games if you count the bowl. But it seems like Dickey is a guy you can trust with 10 carries, and then like Jacoby with 5. So if you do want to run it, but you don't want to give Taj 38 carries, like you can lean on those guys a little bit. So I really liked what I saw, and then obviously Hammond slinging it. No clue what his like grasp of the offense is, how game ready he would be if called into action, but you certainly see the talent pop off the screen and makes you pretty excited about what it could look like when he's running the offense in a year or two or whenever that time comes.
Cam Dickey is 4th in scrimmage yards right now. He's got 18 carries for 105 yards. It's 5.8 yards per carry and 7 grabs for 42 yards. That number kind of slipped my mind a little bit, but if you can use him in the passing game as well and incorporate him into some more of your kind of receiving sets with him in the backfield, I think that gives you a really, really good option off the bench.
Exciting. Can I ask you guys a question? Y'all are football guys. Rizzler. Let me figure out how to phrase this. How did everyone forget how to cover the back out of the backfield this year? UNLV scored on a wheel route, a really simple wheel route at the end of the half. Cam Dickey against Washington State scored his touchdown out of the backfield. It just feels like a bit of an epidemic, especially in college football. I call high school football games, so I've seen 3 of them. Now, granted, it's the same team, but they've been successful and unsuccessful offensively and defensively, respectively, defending the back out and performing the back out. So it feels like at all 3 levels, people have just forgot how to defend the back out of the backfield this year. Is that anecdotal that I just feel like it's more successful this year, or is that something you've seen?
It does kind of feel that way. Well, I think one of the coolest concepts I saw, I think it was Tennessee this past weekend. They ran play action and the back went like between the guard and the tackle, but then like carried it out like a wheel route. And so, of course, he got lost. Defense lost him. But yeah, you're right. It does seem like they're doing a lot of running back kind of wheel route concepts, and it seems to be effective. But I don't know if that's just anecdotal, like you said, or if there's anything there.
All right, hour 43 in. Let's wrap this up with a few more questions. Are you concerned at all that Micah was caught from behind by a second-string North Texas defensive back? No. Does Washington State beating Washington make you feel any better?
Kinda.
I think beating North Texas 66-21 made me feel better. But I was scoreboard watching, and it absolutely made me feel better. Big fan of Dick Hurt. Their coach over there, Jay Dickert, is really good from the Craig Bowl tree, and I think they got a good one. Does Dylan Rayola need to touch grass? No. Keep going, baby. Look, Cuzzo. Are we Take 3 University again?
Is that the first regular season game it's happened under Joey? It happened in the bowl game.
I think that's the first regular season game where you were +3 without any turnovers.
By the way, we didn't talk about this yet, but as soon as I saw it live, I meant to bring it up at the beginning of the show. We were sitting here a couple of weeks ago and old man yelling at Sky about Caleb Douglas getting the championship belt after scoring late against ACU. How amazing was the UNT Stone Cold Steve Austin celebration after an interception down 52-7.
Yeah, it's one thing when you're up $1 billion or it's tied late in the game and you're celebrating like that. But that's stone cold. So I saw that they did that before the game, right? That's something they do. And I thought it looked a little silly. Obviously, I know that Stone Cold is a former North Texas football player. But the guy who was doing it, how do I say this? His wrists were a little loose when he was shaking the bottles. It just looked goofy. But when it was 52-7, man, that was incredible.
And like, I know we all have some thoughts on like the hype videos and the BTS stuff from our content team, but like 52-7, and like you can see like 3 cameramen just like handing them the cans, and then somebody else has got a camera and they're all like smiling. It's just like it's 52-7, y'all.
I would have said
52-7.
I would have said no. I would not have done that. Which Big 12 running back is this after 3 games? Now these are only stats for 2 games. 45 carries, 175 yards, 4 touchdowns. If you add in the other game, I think it's like 60 carries per 200 yards. I mean, it is just atrocious. And that is Fraudy Gordon. Again, I hope that doesn't catch on. He's a really good back and has a lot of success in his career. But against Tulsa, he was 2.9 yards per carry.
RJ Harvey deserves all the hype that Ollie Gordon was getting. That guy is the truth.
Yes. Hey, UCF, Kyle's going to back into something here because he was leading with KJ Jefferson. The rest of that team is the reason UCF is really good.
I wasn't leading with KJ Jefferson. I was just simply noting that he was a
How
good
many
fit.
more quarterbacks in the Big 12 have 8,000 career yards?
Because you said he sucked.
He does.
Okay.
Oh man, I can't believe they won that game.
I was just saying he's a good fit in Malzahn's offense.
He is, and he threw the game-winning touchdown. So credit to him, and credit to you.
Y'all are talking about him like, I don't know, like I'm not going to compare him to anybody else, but he had like 10 yards per attempt throwing, like 45, 48 yards rushing on 5 yards per attempt. Like super efficient player, 0 turnovers, 35 points in a road win, comeback 4th quarter victory.
I think what's frustrating with KJ Jefferson is he has those stats that you just mentioned, but his first 10 throws, he's 2 for 8 and 2 yards per attempt. And then he goes 8 for 2. And for stretches, he is awful. And then for stretches, he's the best player on the field. It just throws me off a little bit.
It takes him a while to settle in. You know, Luka starts 1 for 5 sometimes and then goes for a 35-point triple-double.
So KJ Jefferson's Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think Ollie Gordon, going back to last year, I think that's 7 out of 8. 7 out of his last 8 games where he has failed to eclipse 4.9 yards per carry. That's your Doak Walker Award winner, by the way.
Ollie Gordon stats, game logs, career. All right, going back to 2022. You ready? Rushing yards average. Okay. 3 carries, 3 yards per carry. 3 carries, 21 yards per carry. 6 carries, 2.7. 4 for 3.3. 7 for 1.9. All right, against West Virginia, 17 carries, 136 yards, 8 yards a carry. Wow, that's really good. Wisconsin in the bowl game, 12 carries, 45 yards, 3.8 a carry. In the first 3 games of last year, 7 carries, 9 carries, 3 carries. And then he goes 18 for 6.7, 21 for 6.5, 29 for 5.8, 29 for 9.7, 25 for 10.8. They closed the Doak Walker Award voting 33 for 4.2, 12 for 2.1 a carry. So there's 2 under 4.6 or 4.9, whatever you said. 25 for 6.6 a carry. That's against Houston. 34 carries for 4.9. 13 for 2.6. That's against Texas. And then in the bowl game, 27 carries for 4.4 yards per carry. This year, 28 carries for 4.5 carry. 17, 2.9. 17, 2.4.
So
that's against Arkansas and Tulsa.
So his last 8 games, 3 this year, last 5 of 2023, he's eclipsed it once, correct? He's eclipsed 4.9 yards one time.
Yes, 6.6. Yeah, 8 for
And
9.
he's been held under 3 yards 3 times in that span?
1, 2, 3, 4 times.
So half of his last 8 games, he has not eclipsed 3 yards per carry?
Yes.
Okay. He torched in a 3-game stretch last year. It's like Kansas, West Virginia, one other, BYU maybe. He got like 650 yards in that 3-game stretch against 3 atrocious run defenses. And then it just completely, not even plateaued, like fell off a cliff after that.
He's also 0 for 1 passing with an interception. So I think that needs to be held into account too.
RJ Harvey's not throwing picks.
Does Taj Brooks throw a touchdown this year?
Probably.
Has Jalen Daniels lost at 54 completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions?
Obviously, we never saw him play several games in a row and like a big sample size. But when he was healthy the last few years, he was insane. 9.5 yards per attempt and all this. So what we've seen this year, a far cry from that. I don't know if I'm totally ready to write him off, but something is definitely not clicking like it used to.
All right, 2 more here. 3 more. Should we trade UNT for ACU? Or should the AAC trade UNT for ACU? No. ACU struggle with who they play this week? Like Northwest Central Alabama or something? Is Will Hammond, Micah Hudson, and Cam Dickey the second coming of the Trinity?
Okay, over under that question was asked by somebody who asked last week if our ceiling was 2-10.
I'm not sure. I do not remember that guy asking many questions yet. All right, question for Rob. We'll finish on this one. Maybe. Yeah, we'll finish with this one. Question for Rob. As a broadcaster, what do you do when it's 52-7, 3 minutes till halftime? Feeling for your boy Petros Papadakis right now. I never feel bad for Petros Papadakis. This question's from Kyle. The next question was, are there too many Kyles in the Discord? It's a very common name. 2 things. I've called, I don't know, 30 football games, maybe 30, 40 football games in my short career. Plenty of high school basketball and baseball. And more often than not, in my football calling, I've been on the other side of 52-7 at halftime. And I can tell you this, there's not much to talk about, especially at the high school level. You start saying things like, you just have to rep and try to get better. And this is about creating good young men out there and yada, yada, yada. When you just want to hammer the coaching and the effort and the talent gap. So it's very difficult. Now, there are times when it gets a little silly and you just start talking about anything but football. But I do applaud the broadcasters when it's a blowout either way that can continue talking about football and what's going on. And I thought, to his credit, Petrus and his play-by-play guy did a good job on Saturday. But it's harder than you think. It's basically just a podcast episode in the second half, trying to keep talking because there's not much going on in the field that you want to talk about. So it is moderately difficult, but not so difficult that it can't be done. And I do have a lot of practice calling 7 to 52 games, much more often than I've had to practice the other. I would assume that one is much more fun. And of course, Petrus is right down the middle, unlike Tim Brando, who roots openly against Texas Tech every game he calls. Final thoughts on North Texas, or first thoughts on Arizona State, either of you?
Final thought on North Texas. I just freaking loved our offense, which I know is a 180 from the theme of this very podcast a week ago today. So happy to see some of those apparent alterations. First thought on Arizona State is they run the ball more than certainly anybody you've played, and run the ball more than all but 13 teams nationally. My instinct tells me that you're better at defending the run than the pass based on kind of how much success ACU had with you. And I don't know, our linebackers seem better in run fits than pass coverage. We're not strong at rushing the passer. So I wonder if that kind of plays to your strengths. I wonder if you can get ahead by a little bit and force them out of their comfort zone by making them throw. Maybe that plays to your advantage. However, when they were struggling with and even trailing Texas State at a point, and they stayed pretty committed to, at the time, an inefficient run game. I mean, they were still feeding Scadaboo, and he was at 2 yards per carry or something, and they stuck with it. So I think even if you do get up by 10 or 13 or hopefully more, I don't know if they'll just immediately go to the air. Not sure what to make of Arizona State because, like you said, they've beat a couple bad teams. They beat seemingly a pretty solid Texas State team. And I'm not sure what you are. Like, you've played one really, really good game. You've played one atrocious game. And you've played one game where you were good on one side of the ball, bad on the other side of the ball. So I think both teams, might kind of continue to learn a lot about themselves on Saturday. And I guess final note, Kenny Dillingham, I think at Big 12 Media Days, mentioned something. It was a quote that was not flattering to the Pac-12 in that he said, like, hey, in this conference now, when you go on the road, it's not going to be quiet. You're going to be faced with tens of thousands of fans screaming and making noise. And I really hope that our home field advantage is tangible and apparent on Saturday, because I don't know if Arizona State had, they did go on the road and beat Texas State, but I would like to think our home field advantage is a little bit different than that. So curious if that plays a factor too.
Money?
Just another opportunity to go 1-0 this week. Saw the blueprint, obviously, of what happens when you take 3. Let's do some more of that. Let's set up the passing game with the run. Let's play smart football. That doesn't put us in a bad position. No pun intended. Shout out to smart football. Also, shout out to Big Hen, Marvin Harrison, giving me a great day in fantasy today. But yeah, again, I know we don't really get serious on this podcast, but just to wrap it up, please do not let Friday Gordon or Alan Blowman, please don't let that catch on. We would just hate to see that, along with every man a whiner. Just no room for that kind of stuff in the Big 12. So
I'm completely out on Kansas State.
It's my final thought.
Oh yeah.
Let's watch one
Oh,
more
I
time.
love that.
Let's watch it one more time.
So beautiful. Such an excellently coordinated run game there.
If you're just listening on the Republican football feed, go watch our YouTube channel. Smash the subscribe.
Subscribe the button,
YouTube.
like and retweet if you agree. What do you notice about the subscribe button?
YouTube.com/@Gamblin Gauchos for some reason.
Patreon.
Kyle,
Dave Campbell's.
I can't believe you
.com.
did that this week.
You can't believe what?
What do you notice about the Texas Tech passing game? That boy's starving.
I'm so sick of seeing those tweets. People just be like, "What do you notice about this cardboard box?" Like, either tell us or I don't know.
Oh my god.
No, but what I was going for, I was actually curious if everybody noticed that like every single passing highlight was play action. People were more fixated on, oh, no screens. We finally used the middle of the field. A few did say play action, but I was actually kind of quizzing them to see if they picked up on it.
Can I? Sorry, we're 120 minutes of us. Can I just go on one small rant
Sure.
in defense of Zach Kitley? I understand that they called a lot of screen plays, okay, against Washington State. In a lot of games in the last 3 years, they've relied on the screen game, I thought, a little too much. When the quarterback is not throwing over the middle or down the field, that's on the quarterback. Zach Kitley isn't. But you see receivers running over the middle of the field, right? And they're not, and Tyler Shuck's not throwing to them until he's in a Louisville uniform. Like, y'all see that, right? You see guys running down the field. They're not throwing to them. That's execution. Zach Kitley has gotten a lot of flack for that in the last 3 years. You've had pretty poor execution at the quarterback position also for the last 3 years. So, just a little bit of defense for Kitley there.
I think people also.
Why isn't Kitley using the middle of the field? He's not throwing it. The quarterback is, and he's not doing it.
I think some people also don't understand that you like the defense kind of dictates where you go with the ball.
Yeah.
And they're not just going to let you throw like 20-yard post routes over the middle all game.
Yeah, they have 3 safeties on the field. What do you want him to do? He's going to throw the back shoulder of the corner again.
Money, did you have like a switch on your breaker panel trip earlier or something? You doing any electrical work at the house?
Yeah, just, flipping a switch, seeing what it does. Just rolling the dice.
Love that.
Now I flipped the switch. Money, you've done, 100 podcasts with us now? This is like episode 300. That thing's open all the time. I never asked about it. I just felt bad asking about it, but Kyle just asked about it. Have you never noticed that, Kyle?
No, I thought it was closed before.
His breaker box is open 80% of the time.
Yeah, it doesn't close. The latch is broken.
It's always open.
You're telling
You've never
me
noticed that?
you're telling me that breaker panel is Josh Kelly and it's always open?
Like 80% of the time, that thing is open. And that's, I believe, Micah Hudson is always open.
I've seen it back there. I did not notice it was open.
Yeah, and you've not always been in this room. But
It's true.
Since you've been in this room.
About a year.
Yeah, with the, the better ceiling.
Oh, yeah. You used to have the ceiling fan.
But, that thing's like always, I don't know where you are. Is that a bedroom door?
This is my bedroom, yes.
And is that a closet beside you?
This is my bathroom.
Okay. Yeah, but that breaker box is, pretty much always open. My breaker box is somewhere over there. But
mine is in the garage.
It's also painted white. This is why you probably couldn't see it. All right. Yeah, I always wanted to ask about that breaker box, but I never did.
Yeah, good talk here at the end, guys.
We've got 1,000 people in here, and nothing's happening.
It's segments like this that make me think when you meet Clark Lambert, he's like, "Hey, love the show," that he's just like lying. Because he's listening, he's like, "This sucks." But if I see them, I'll tell him it's good.
Those 3 minutes on Money's breaker box were the highlight of my week.
Yeah, I will say, Clark, I think he said, hey, he was very complimentary. I really appreciate him saying what he said. But he said something like, "Yeah, y'all have built a really good audience. Kyle's great." I was like, "Oh, what?" I was like, "Are me and Ryan?"
People
I
do
mean,
that though. Like,
he was just saying like he knows you. He was catching
yeah,
up on you, and he said, tell Kyle hi and all that. So it
that
was
that is
just
funny though. Like
that he let hey,
e-
Kyle's
every now every now and then in Discord or like YouTube comments,
yeah,
like I know Big Hen does it as a bit, but or like in Discord, somebody like, "Hey Rob, is the podcast? Are y'all recording tonight?" And it's like,
yeah,
"Do you care if me and Money record tonight, or do you just want Rob to go solo for?"
yeah. Oh man, that's good. That's good.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
big gulps, huh? Two
all right.
skis. They're both yours. All right, love y'all. Anybody else? All right.